Join our family of creators. Your support means the world to us. Subscribe now to the Content Creator channel. Your support keeps us motivated and helps us bring you fresh, exciting content every week. Hit that subscribe button and be part of our journey. Did you know that in the US, a nation that prides itself on democratic ideals, the person with the most votes for president can still lose? It sounds paradoxical, doesn't it? In a system where every vote is supposed to count, how can the candidate with the most individual support end up on the losing side? It's not a hypothetical scenario. It's happened 5 times throughout American history, a testament to the complexities and quirks of our electoral process. And remarkably, twice in the last 25 years, highlighting that this isn't just a relic of the past, but a present-day reality. These elections serve as stark reminders of the system's potential for outcomes that defy the popular will. Imagine a football game where the team with more touchdowns, more first downs, and more overall yardage loses, despite clearly outperforming their opponent. All because of rules made centuries ago, rules that, while perhaps well-intentioned at the time, now seem out of sync with modern democratic principles. These rules, enshrined in our Constitution, continue to shape our elections in profound ways. That's the American system. A system that often feels more like a carefully constructed compromise than a pure expression of the people's voice. The US proudly calls itself the world's greatest democracy, a beacon of freedom and self-governance for nations around the globe. But the rules often feel like a confusing board game, a labyrinthine set of procedures and regulations that can be difficult for even the most engaged citizens to fully understand. Where some players start with extra advantages, where money and influence can often outweigh the power of individual votes. We're going to break down why so many Americans feel their vote doesn't matter, why they feel disconnected from the political process, and why voter turnout often lags behind other developed nations. And why the system can seem more like a performance than true democracy, a carefully orchestrated spectacle designed to maintain the status quo, rather than empower the electorate. Let's dive into the nuts and bolts of American democracy, and see why it's so often called a charade, a system that, despite its lofty ideals, often falls short of delivering on its promise of equal representation and true democratic governance. Let's talk about the Electoral College. It's a term we hear often, especially during presidential election years, but what does it really mean? How does it function? And why does it exist in the first place? Understanding the Electoral College is crucial to understanding how the United States elects its president, and it's a system that's often misunderstood and debated. It's the system that ultimately decides who becomes president of the United States. It's not as simple as a direct popular vote where the candidate with the most individual votes wins. The Electoral College introduces a layer of complexity that can sometimes lead to surprising results. It's not a direct vote, meaning your individual vote doesn't directly translate into electing the president. Instead, it contributes to a larger process that involves electors and state-by-state calculations. This indirect system is a key characteristic of the Electoral College. Instead, each state gets a certain number of electoral votes. The number of electors each state receives is based on its total number of representatives in Congress, 1 for each member in the House of Representatives, and 2 for its senators. This means that states with larger populations have more electoral votes than states with smaller populations. And in most states, a winner-take-all system is in place. This means that whoever wins the popular vote in that state receives all of its electoral votes. This is the standard practice in 48 out of the 50 states. Even if a candidate wins a state by a single ballot, they still get all of that state's electoral votes. This winner-take-all approach amplifies the importance of even the slimmest of victories in certain states. It can create situations where a relatively small number of votes can have a significant impact on the overall election outcome. This means if you live in a solidly blue or red state, where one party consistently wins by a large margin, your individual vote barely matters in the grand scheme of the presidential election. The outcome is often predictable, and the candidates tend to focus their resources elsewhere. Because the presidential election is often decided before the votes are even cast in these states, this can lead to voter apathy and a feeling that participation is futile. Why bother voting if the outcome is already predetermined? All the action, all the attention, and all the campaign resources are concentrated in a handful of swing states, also known as battleground states. These are the states where the election is truly up for grabs, and where the candidates spend most of their time and money trying to win over voters. The result of this system? A candidate can actually lose the popular vote, meaning they receive fewer individual votes nationwide than their opponent, but still win the presidency by securing a majority of the electoral votes. This is a controversial outcome that highlights the potential disconnect between the popular will and the final result of the election. It happened in 2000, with George W. Bush defeating Al Gore despite Gore winning the popular vote. And again in 2016, when Donald Trump won the presidency over Hillary Clinton, even though Clinton received nearly 3 million more individual votes. Defenders of the Electoral College say it protects the interests of small states, ensuring that their voices aren't drowned out by the larger, more populous states. The argument is that without the Electoral College, candidates would only focus on densely populated areas, neglecting the needs and concerns of rural communities. But in reality, it just empowers a few unpredictable swing states, giving them disproportionate influence in the outcome of presidential elections. These states become the center of attention, while other states are largely ignored. The system warps campaigns, dictating where candidates spend their time and resources. It forces them to prioritize certain states and demographics over others, leading to a fragmented and uneven campaign landscape. Forcing candidates to focus on narrow interests and specific demographics within those swing states in order to maximize their chances of winning those crucial electoral votes. This can lead to policies and promises that cater to a select few rather than addressing the broader needs of the nation. And ignore most of the country, particularly those states where the outcome is perceived as already decided. This can create a sense of disenfranchisement and resentment among voters who feel their voices are not being heard. It's a relic from another era, a compromise made during the Constitutional Convention of 1787, when the Founding Fathers were grappling with the balance of power between states and the role of the people in electing their leader. That fundamentally undermines the core idea that every vote should count equally regardless of where you live. It creates a system where some votes are inherently more valuable than others, based solely on state residency. Millions of Americans feel their participation is pointless, that their vote doesn't truly matter in the presidential election, leading to lower voter turnout and a sense of disengagement from the political process. And the system keeps producing presidents who don't have the support of the majority of American voters, further fueling division and distrust in the political system. This lack of a clear mandate can make it difficult for presidents to govern effectively and unite the country. The Electoral College is Exhibit A, a prime example. In the case that American democracy isn't as democratic as it claims to be, a system that, despite its historical roots, may no longer be serving the best interests of the American people. It's a system that needs a serious rethink, a fundamental reevaluation of its purpose and its impact on American democracy. The question is, are we willing to have that conversation? In theory, Americans can choose from many political parties. In reality, it's Democrats or Republicans, period. The two-party system is locked in by rules that make it nearly impossible for third parties to compete. If you don't fit neatly into either party, you're left choosing the lesser of two evils. Winner-take-all elections mean voting for a third party is often seen as wasting your vote. This cycle keeps new ideas out and forces voters into narrow choices. The result? Millions feel unrepresented and real debate is stifled. American democracy offers the illusion of choice, but the menu is always the same. To understand American politics, follow the money. Running for office costs millions or billions. Most of that money comes from wealthy donors, corporations, and special interests. Politicians spend more time fundraising than governing, and big donors get special access and influence. Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United opened the floodgates for unlimited, often secret campaign spending. Super PACs and dark money groups can spend whatever they want to sway elections. The result? Policies that favor the rich while ordinary people are left out. Money buys influence and influence shapes the laws. It's less a democracy, more an auction. The media should inform and hold power accountable, but in the US it's a partisan battlefield. Americans live in separate information bubbles, fed by outlets that confirm their biases instead of reporting facts. Local journalism is dying, leaving many with no reliable news at all. Sensationalism, outrage, and fear drive ratings and push political discourse to the extremes. Social media algorithms amplify the loudest, most divisive voices. In this environment, real debate and reasoned arguments barely stand a chance. Gerrymandering is the art of politicians picking their voters by redrawing district lines to keep their party in power. With modern data, this manipulation is precise and powerful. Techniques like packing and cracking dilute the opposition's votes, locking in majorities even when most people vote the other way. The result? A party can win fewer votes but more seats. Safe districts mean only the most extreme candidates win primaries, fueling polarization. Compromise becomes a liability and moderation is punished. Gerrymandering subverts the will of the people and makes Congress even more dysfunctional. It's democracy in name, but not in practice. Who writes America's laws? Often it's lobbyists paid by corporations and special interests to influence government. Lobbyists build cozy relationships with lawmakers, offering campaign cash and insider information. The revolving door lets former officials become high-paid lobbyists overnight. Their influence is everywhere: tax codes, regulations, healthcare, and more. The public's interests are drowned out by armies of well-funded professionals. The rules are written by those with the most to gain, rigging the game in their favor. It's a shadow government that mocks the idea of rule by the people. For all its talk of democracy, America often makes voting hard, by design. Laws passed in many states make it tougher for certain groups to vote, especially minorities, the elderly, and the poor. Strict ID requirements, purging voter rolls, and closing polling places all create barriers. Long lines and fewer voting days mean many simply give up. These tactics disproportionately affect groups likely to vote for one party. The real goal isn't election security. It's shaping who gets to vote. It's a direct attack on the principle of one person, one vote. So, is American democracy a charade? A carefully constructed illusion designed to mask the true nature of power? Is it merely a performance, a series of rituals that give the appearance of popular sovereignty, while the real decisions are made behind closed doors? The system lets losers win, handing victory to candidates who didn't actually receive the most votes. It defies the basic principle of majority rule, leaving many feeling disenfranchised and questioning the legitimacy of the outcome. Limits choices, forcing voters to pick between two dominant parties that may not fully represent their views. Third parties and independent candidates often struggle to gain traction, leaving many feeling like their voices are not being heard. Drowns elections in money, giving wealthy donors and special interests an outsized influence on the political process. Ordinary citizens find it difficult to compete with the financial power of corporations and the ultra-rich. Divides us with media, creating echo chambers and reinforcing partisan divides. The constant barrage of biased information makes it difficult to find common ground and engage in constructive dialogue, and makes voting harder. Strict voter ID laws, limited polling locations, and other obstacles disproportionately affect marginalized communities, making it more difficult for them to exercise their right to vote. These aren't minor flaws, they're built into the system, baked into the very foundations of our government. These issues aren't accidental, they are the result of deliberate choices made throughout history, fueling a sense of powerlessness. Many feel that their voices don't matter, that the system is rigged against them, and that there's nothing they can do to change it. But the ideals of democracy are real, the promise of equality, justice, and self-governance that has inspired generations. These ideals are worth fighting for, even when the reality falls short, and the fight to make them reality is ongoing. It's a constant struggle to expand rights, protect liberties, and ensure that everyone has a voice in shaping the future of our country. Throughout history, people have expanded rights and pushed for reform, often against powerful resistance. From the abolition of slavery to the women's suffrage movement, progress has always required courage, determination, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. The struggle isn't over. The real question is, can we still change the system? Is it possible to overcome the entrenched interests and systemic flaws that undermine our democracy? Or are we destined to repeat the mistakes of the past? Can we reform the Electoral College, reduce money's influence, demand better media, end gerrymandering, and stop voter suppression? The only way to turn the charade into something real is to keep fighting for change, to organize, to advocate, to hold our elected officials accountable, and to demand a system that truly represents the will of the people. American democracy is flawed and frustrating, but whether it stays that way is up to its people. The power to shape our democracy lies in the hands of each and every citizen. The system isn't hopeless, but it won't fix itself. The future of democracy depends on those willing to demand better. It requires a commitment to civic engagement, a willingness to challenge the status quo, and a belief in the power of collective action.